This is the FanDuel Punch-Out, and I am Russell Clay, your host. You can find me on Twitter at Russell J. Clay. This is a 15-game Sunday slate, June 12th, January 12th. That'd be wild. That'd be wild baseball if we had it in January. In terms of the slate, 15-gamer, most of it afternoon, so get those locks in early. Let's look at some pitching. John Lester, obviously on the hill today against Atlanta. Best matchup of the night, afternoon, and etc. And I think when you look at this Atlanta team, last against lefties in pretty much everything since 2014. So it's a real struggle. That's a real strong option, especially in cash. But I mean, he's going to be highly owned everywhere, but it's worth it in cash. And you can be different in tournaments, but I think you should throw some Leicester tournament lineups out there regardless. Steven Matz, solid option, 9,800 against the Brewers. I think you're looking at a good matchup there. As well as Aaron Sanchez, 9,200. I like that quite a bit. Adam Conley's an interesting punt play at 8,200. And I think it keeps going down the line here. Michael Fulmer, I think we're going to start seeing him regress down a little tiny bit here. Not saying this is a total fluke what he's done the last 4 starts, but not what you'd come to expect. So 8,200, probably avoiding him against a pretty tough Yankees lineup against righties. So not touching him. In terms of cheaper options, I think the guy I'm really looking at is Julio Urias, 6,700. Definitely intrigues me quite a bit at his price. Obviously, he's young and up and coming, only 19, but he's got crazy stuff, and he seemed to start to get it last start. So I want to be on that train before it leaves the station. So I think that might be tonight when he finally starts to make his mark on the majors. Heading over to catcher. Buster Posey, 3,300. Gotta love that price. Pretty reasonable matchup, and obviously the Giants are coming off a few rough starts, few rough games in a row. That one against Kershaw really sticks out as just dominant. But I think you go back with Posey, 3,300, pretty reasonable, and it kind of takes. I like McCann more on DK because Posey was in a totally different price tier, but with that tier considered, it kind of takes a lot of these guys out of play. Same with Vaught. Vaught was a lot cheaper than both of those guys on DK, but in the same price range, you got to go Posey there. Wellington Castillo in a bad matchup. You do like Victor Martinez against Pineda. I think that's a reasonably priced guy, 3K. Matt Wieters in a bad matchup. I don't think we're touching him. And again, Yan Gomes, I think, is an interesting punt play on the road here against the Angels. So 2,500. I like those contrarian Indian lineups. So definitely what you're looking at there. Will Myers is the highest priced first baseman. What a world we live in, folks. That's pretty wild. He's more expensive than Paul Goldschmidt. Obviously, he gets bumped up because of course, but I'm still not paying that price for Will Myers. I just can't do it. I know he's been awesome of late, but that's just not something I'm willing to invest in. Anthony Rizzo, 4,200 against Gant. I'm in on that. Him and Brian obviously both homered yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised if they both homered today. Get down to 4K here. David Ortiz just staring you in the face. I think that's clearly the best option at first today. 4K is expensive, but obviously it's not Will Myers expensive, and it's kind of not as glaring of a salary as most David Ortiz salaries are when he's on the slate. So I'm okay with this. I like that price. I like Red Sox tonight, so I think you're throwing Ortiz in there for sure. It kind of takes a lot of these guys out of play. Matt Adams not in play because of that. Chris Davis, I don't really think you're looking at. And then you kind of jump down to Joey Votto, Carlos Santana, guys like that. Solid options, solid one-offs for sure. And Votto, I mean, that's a great price for him against Graverman. You gotta like that, 3,500. Obviously has that upside. So speaking of upside, Chris Carter obviously normally has upside, but I don't think you can play him tonight against Mats. That's just not a good matchup for him. I could see quite a few strikeouts in his future. Uh, going down here, Adrian Gonzalez, 3K against PV. Lefty righty. Gonzalez is struggling this year, but he's still hitting high in the lineup. He's still Adrian Gonzalez, so he has that track record. I like that price for him at 3K. So if he's in the lineup and hitting high, then I think he'd be willing. He's a willing punt play, in my opinion. Prince Fielder, no, 2,600. You just keep going by. Same with Ryan Howard. James Loney, 2,100. He's been reasonable, I guess. He's kind of getting hits here and there. Not really the upside you're looking for, but at 2,100, you'll take 2 hits or a stolen base or something like that. So that's kind of what you're looking at with Loney. Moving over to second here. Matt Carpenter, it's just too expensive for me. I'd rather just go down to Murphy. Altuve is much better priced here, but he's still too expensive. I just like the Red Sox bats tonight. Pedroia for 3,900. I'll take that over Altuve and Carpenter. Still like Daniel Murphy as that tier 1 guy for sure though. DJ LeMahieu, 3,700. Not bad for a Coors bat. I think you can fit them in pretty reasonably, and I mean probably non-Lester lineups. But if you do go that route, I mean, I'm sure you can make it work. You just need to find some 2K guys, which there always seem to be on FanDuel. So I wouldn't worry about that. Kipnis down there again. Again, I like Cleveland as sort of the one-off guy. Zobrist right there as well. Super valuable at that price. So you have to like that. Again, Panic. Second's just loaded in the mid-tiers. So I think that's definitely what you're looking at. Chase Utley, don't mind that matchup against PV. Odor, solid matchup. So I'm looking in that mid-range. Obviously, lineup construction is going to tell the story on which guys you go with. Kipnis probably just a tournament guy. A lot of these guys are just tournament guys, but in terms of that range, it's pretty fruitful. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. Derek Dietrich, 2,800. Gotta love that. Batting over 320 this year. Not worried about Robbie Ray, so throw him in there. Josh Harrison, 2,600. If he's in the lineup, you're throwing him in there as a punt, and you gotta love that. Starlin Castro, he makes that an avoid of Starlin Castro tonight for me. And that's pretty straightforward there. Josh Harrison, great value. Third base, Nolan Arenado, by far the highest priced guy, 400 over second place, and Josh Donaldson. You still love it. You still love Coors. Arenado crushing the ball at home this year, as he has done historically. So I'm just with it. He's got a 3-hit game and a home run in 2 of the last 3 games. So I think that's just what you're looking at. He's a super high priced option because he's a super high upside player. Highest upside of the night, in my opinion. So definitely want to get some surrounding pieces if you are playing him. But other than that, I mean, that's the guy at the top. I like him quite a bit more than Donaldson. Bryant, that might be in a different tier slightly. 600 less. I do like that as well. I think you can combine Bryant and Rizzo again today, and I think you could see, as I mentioned with Rizzo, both of them sort of getting there. Kyle Seager not in play today against the lefty Cole Hamels, so something to note. Danny Valencia always seemingly hitting the ball and out producing his value. So you got to like that. Martin Prado, 320 on the year, 3,400. So again, I think you can go with that Marlins lineup minus Stanton and be pretty happy with the results. Jose Ramirez, 3K. That's super cheap for him. You're definitely liking that as a one-off and as a tournament play, and maybe a contrarian tournament Cleveland mini stack. However complicated you want to get with it, or as many words as you want to use. Interesting tournament play for sure. And then in terms of paying down, you got Hernan there at 2,200. Not a great matchup, but if you need him to be your hero, he is a superstar, kind of like Gregorio Petit. 2,200. I mean, I'm thinking about it. It's not a great matchup, but again, maybe he'll get some of that Mets bullpen and not against Mets the entire game. So you kind of bank on getting a little lucky there, but at 2,200, you kind of have to get lucky. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. Ledimus Diaz, highest price catcher or highest price shortstop for a very good reason. He's just so consistent. Ultra cash game bat. I'm not worried about that price for him. I think that's pretty fair. Machado 3,700. Again, his price is reduced just like in DraftKings. I'm not fading him for any reason, so I think he's all systems go. Not worried about the matchup for him. Trevor Story 3,700 in that same range as is Bogarts. I mentioned they're much more expensive on DK, but that group right there is very strong. Shortstop is very strong tonight at the top, and that would be the direction I would look. And if I had to rank them, I would go Story 1, Bogarts 2, Machado 3, and then Corey Seager 3, and Machado 4. Excuse me. Yeah. But I mean, all those guys are super solid. Zach Cozart in another solid matchup, 3,300. Gotta like that. Jonathan Villar not in play. Be aware of that. Danny Espinosa, you're not looking at that really for his price. I think you can just bump up to Lindor or something like that instead of paying that price. Javier Baez, 2,700. You gotta love that against Atlanta and Gant. So depending on where he's hitting in the order, he's been definitely a solid option so far this year. And then, I mean, paying down, I don't think you want to pay down at short tonight. I think there's just too much upside at the top, and it's not killing you for cap. It's not like all these guys are 4,500. So I think you can fit them in, do the responsible thing, fit them in, and I think that'll reap some benefits for you. Carlos Gonzalez really heating up, obviously, over the last sort of few weeks, and I expect that to continue in Coors. 4,400, pretty reasonable price for him, I guess, with Coors considered. He's right next to Arenado for super high upside tonight. Charlie Blackmon in that, not quite in that same tier, but he is connected to all of them. So if you are making Coors stacks, he's definitely a guy you have to keep an eye on. George Springer versus Moore. Moore's obviously struggled this year, even though I think he's a pretty decent arm. You're looking at that 4,300. Springer, Altuve. They're both overpriced, but I could see a way that you would throw them and Correa out there. I'm not against it. I just think it's overpriced. Bryce Harper, 4K, solid price for him, going under the radar a little bit here, I think. And not a bad matchup. So I think you're going to get him at pretty decent ownership rates, and I would feel pretty strong about that. Brett Gardner again, a lefty against who's pitching for Detroit today? Who is it, folks? Fulmer, that's right. A lefty against Fulmer. Okay, Fulmer, again, I'm not totally sold on as an ace yet. So I think there are ways you can attack him in a contrarian way. I don't think many people are going to be on the Yankees lefties today, and I think that's an interesting way to go. Because if they get to him, it could be all over pretty early. So that's what I'm looking at there. Robbie Grossman, 3,300, huge price bump from sort of the value he was a few days ago. Porcello's been inconsistent to say the least. 3,300, not a bad price for him. Uh, Jacoby Ellsbury, another lefty there. Jackie Bradley, definitely solid matchups for them. Um, Whit Merrifield, I'm not afraid of the White Sox and being at home there. So 3,100, I do like that quite a bit. Matt Holliday again coming off the home run last night, 3,100, solid value. And Ichiro again, 2,900, still below 3K, which makes me smile. He's obviously been super strong this year, batting 330, getting 2 hits basically every game. So that's what you look for in sort of a leadoff guy and a guy under 3K. So you definitely like that. Franklin Gutierrez taking the night off from him, 2,700 against Hamels. It's been a fun week rostering him, but I think that run is pretty much over now. So yeah, that's kind of what you're looking at there, unfortunately. And the rest, I mean, you can wait on that, but depending on what happens, I think you should stick in that 3K range. There's some solid values there, especially Adam Duvall, 3,700. He's obviously got that power and he's got a good matchup tonight. So that's definitely someone to keep an eye on for sure. And as always, this has been the FanDuel Punch Out. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this helped and we can get you some winning lineups out there. Thanks for tuning in. Check out Daily Fantasy Cafe for all our awesome, cool tools and content.